So my first question is what everybody wants to know is how do you feel about reunions? Everybody wants to know that.
Well, it's been my livelihood for the past several years. Reunions for me are near and dear to my heart. I was able to create my own convention back in 2019 called Degrassi Palooza. I got 25 of my old cast and crew together for a lovely weekend here in Toronto. We had 300 people travel from around the world to come to Degrassi Palooza, make that pilgrimage to Toronto where the show was filmed. And it was just a really special event. And I actually created a documentary in 2020 during the pandemic to celebrate that reunion. And people can watch that documentary if they want via my website, degrassitour.com.
Wow. So 300 people out of country?
Out of country, everybody pretty much flew in. There was a few locals, obviously, but it was really, we had people from Russia, Australia, all over America and Canada. Once they found out that there was this reunion, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, they just jumped on that chance to come and make that pilgrimage to Toronto. I had a bus tour that took us to the sets and the studios of Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High, very much like Seinfeld. When Kramer did that bus tour. But it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to see people that I hadn't seen in 25 years and tell stories and share experiences and what have we been up to and reacquaint ourselves. It was a really special weekend. And I learned that from all of the people in the industry that I've met these past several years at all these comic conventions across Canada, how wonderful nostalgia and pop culture is. And it made me want to not only be a celebrity guest at these events across the country, but create my own convention. And I realized soon after how difficult it is to create a convention. So kudos to Ottawa Comic-Con and Montreal Comic-Con for all their hard work over the years. It's not easy, but man, oh man, was it a lot of fun.
That's great. So you survived it and then you made the documentary. How was that process?
I had dozens and dozens of hours of footage that we had filmed, multiple cameras, multiple panels, and I just wanted to try to put the best of the best moments all in this 90-minute video, celebrating the cast that was kind enough to come and join us. And man, this documentary could have been 10 hours long because there was that much great footage, but I crunched it all down and we have some wonderful moments. And really, it's a glorified podcast, kind of like what you'd see at a regular convention when you film the celebrity panels, but I was able to do all these different panels and put them together in a cohesive storytelling way. It was my first time ever doing anything like this. I'm glad I was able to get it out there for the audience to watch it. For those who attended the event, it was a way for them to relive it. And for those who couldn't make the event, it was a way to have them there as well. And it coincided with a small little graphic novel autobiography that I created as well last year.
Oh, wow. Was there a character on the show that you would have rather played? Somebody else's role that you wanted to have?
Man, oh man, back in the day, I mean, I was just so happy to be working on a TV show. Joey Jeremiah for me was the epitome of what it meant to be cool. I tell in my autobiography that I didn't know how to act. I was basically pretending what would it feel like to be a cool kid, a popular kid in school? How would that person behave? And ultimately, I also said to myself, how would Michael J. Fox play this scene if he was playing this character? Because again, I was just a kid plucked out of the streets of Toronto, as well as many other cast members from the show. So I was learning as I was doing the series how to play a character and how to perform and what felt right, how to bring up emotions and things like. So I often would refer to Michael J. Fox as my guy. Hence why I have a DeLorean behind me in my office.
Wow.
Love Back to the Future. I owned a DeLorean for about 7 years, not that long ago. And again, I just sort of, and I had the opportunity to meet Michael J. Fox a couple of years ago, which was very special. And again, it's all because of these wonderful pop culture conventions that happen across Canada that people like us get to meet our childhood heroes. So I don't take it for granted when I do get to appear at these conventions and people come up to me and tell me how special the show was for them or a particular character connected with them in their lives.
That's excellent. What an honor to get to meet Michael J. Fox. That must have been an amazing experience.
It really was, especially when he said, Degrassi, yes, I know, I've heard that show. I know it. I think my kids watch it. And literally every time he said Degrassi, he was legitimizing my entire career. So I just walked away and I was fangirling the whole time. But again, it reminded me how special it is to be in that position where people come up to you and say, hey, I really appreciated having you guys in my childhood and watching you guys week after week, welcoming you in my home for years. And you guys and your show and your characters became part of my family or my world. And the show is very near and dear to my heart. And man, it's really nice to be able to make that connection, because we weren't able to do that in the 80s and 90s without social media, Facebook, Instagram, all the different platforms that are out there now where you actually can interact with your celebrity friend, if you're a fan of a certain celebrity or whatnot. We didn't have any of that. We barely got any fan mail back in the day. We didn't know the lives that we were touching with our show or the people that we were connecting with. We just couldn't understand. But now with all these conventions that are happening, all these opportunities to meet and greet with our fans, even though we're all older, man, I can't even tell you how many times a mom or a dad come up to my table at a convention with a 8-9-year-old kid, and they say, hey, this is who I watched on TV when I was your age. This was my childhood hero, and it makes it really, really special. And you can only do that at these kind of conventions that are now available, and I do hope can come back soon after this pandemic.
Absolutely. And I think you really said it, that you put it on screen. You said that you were pretending to what a cool kid would be. And that is literally what the kids do. And I think that touched the audiences amazingly. They could see that and how much even a cool kid wants to remain cool. And that was so well portrayed. So you really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I couldn't fool anybody. I think even the audience realized that the Joey character was just as insecure and shy and scared as they were going to high school at that time, because we all were terrified kids growing up. Will they like me? Am I a nerd or whatever? I dealt with those issues as well growing up as a kid. So I do think that facade that Joey created with his bravado and everything, people saw right through it, but they knew he had a good heart and was a kind-hearted person until school's out. Then he ruined everything.
How was the end of filming, like the last day on set with the crew all together? Kind of a run through of how that went and where your emotions were, bringing it to a close.
Boy, oh boy, it's really hard, because there were many times that the show ended for me over the years. It ended with Degrassi High, the last episode. It ended after Degrassi Talks, which was a documentary series that we did after the series ended. It ended when we finished filming School's Out, the finale movie. And then, coming back and doing Degrassi TNG in the early 2000s and leaving the show after 2005, after 5 seasons. I feel like the show keeps leaving my life, but it never completely goes away, because it follows me. It is something that I'll obviously be known for forever. I used to joke, if this is the only thing people remember me for, there are worse things to be remembered. Obviously, I have embraced my Degrassi world now. It is a huge part of my life, because I am now sort of the ambassador of the nostalgic factor of the show. I'm in the business of nostalgia now. And again, I've learned that from all my friends in the convention community to embrace public appearances, speaking engagements. We have screenings that we do across the country. Stacey Mistitian, who played Caitlin, and I are often making appearances at different locations across Canada, and we're hoping to expand worldwide, because we know the show had a worldwide market. But again, yeah, we enjoy connecting with the fans. We enjoy reminiscing with the fans and storytelling. And it makes us feel good, because we get to go back in time and relive our youth. And I see all these amazing pictures around me in this frame as we have our conversation from back in the day. And it really encapsulates our youth, and it represents Canadian youth, which is really special. And I do say something at the end of my documentary, which I'll repeat here with you now. I told the fans that came to our event that we are a very special generation. We are the last of an analog generation. There'll never be another generation like ours ever again, because we live in this digital world. So that is very special to me, because we were right at the cusp with the 80s and 90s, with technology changing. I think we lived a very simple life in a simple world back then, and we'll never be able to go back to that existence that we had. And we can only do that now through the camera lens and what we've recorded and what we've documented and what we played on Degrassi. It really is the perfect embodiment of being a child or a youthful person in the 80s and 90s.
Did you realize then that you were making teenagers feel less alone? You said now people are on internet and TikTok and they contact each other. You had no way of knowing. Was there a way to realize that you were impacting people in this way?
Unfortunately not, Cheryl, because we would get critical acclaim, through interviews and media, like newspapers and interviews that we would do for ET Canada or whatever was available to us at the time. But for fans, it was the odd fan I would meet on the street, or once in a while we'd get a little letter in the mail at the office, but not like today, not the instant gratification that you can get today with social media or at live events. I didn't realize the show had that much reach and had connected. Like I was the clown on the show, the class clown, and I would get into shenanigans, and I thought that was funny. But for a lot of people, they took to heart a lot of the storylines, such as the AIDS storyline. It was the first time a show like ours had dealt with such a serious topic, or teenage suicide and whatnot, abusive relationships. People connected to that. People really reached out to those characters and were grateful that they weren't alone, that there were people that could understand what they were going through, unfortunately, at that time, if it was something serious.
Exactly.
And it created dialogue. It created a conversation with either friends or family, and gave parents an opportunity to talk to their kids, because a lot of parents watch the show with their kids to say, hey, does that go on at your school too? Is that something? And they would strike up a dialogue.
Yeah, I can say personally for kids who didn't have those dialogues, just knowing that other people were going through it and it was being interpreted by people like them, which actually brings me to my next question. We keep hearing that there was not a makeup person and that everybody on the show picked their own outfits. And compared to this world of everything being high gloss and everything being photoshopped, how do you feel that it lends itself to authenticity and how it would be applied today in a world like this?
I don't think you could get any more authentic than Degrassi in terms of our look. I mean, I would literally watch an episode of Degrassi and watch a pimple move across my head throughout the episode, because you film out a sequence, right? You don't film from scene 1 to scene 30 in a day or so. So yeah, they embrace the imperfections because kids are not perfect, and the clothing is never. And sometimes, because we filmed on 16 millimeter film, we needed to wear those bright colors because they read well on camera. So yeah, we made a lot of sacrifices for style. We made a lot of sacrifices for look. And I know that we talk about this in the documentary. The girls talk about how it was unflattering and they wish they could have picked their own wardrobes or done their own makeup the way they would have liked to have, because yeah, it just wasn't there. And I think that lends the show to being more real, more honest, more genuine, more urban. People were either fans of 90210 because it was slick and glossy and pretty, or they were drawn to Degrassi because it was more earthy, more city and more street, and maybe a little bit more honest. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's endearing when you can go back and watch and go, oh man, they never put any makeup on us at all.
Which is great. I think that's a great way for it to be relatable. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of Canadians and a lot of kids were excited to see themselves on the camera.
Oh, absolutely. We were a very multicultural cast, and I wish we were even more multicultural back then. I think we could have broken down even more barriers. I know the show, The Next Generation and The Next Class, broke down a lot of walls that we didn't back then. But even Degrassi is an evolution of what we can talk and how we can tell stories that are prevalent to today's youth. I've read some of the scripts and I've heard of some of the storylines that The Next Generation did, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe they did that. But again, our audience becomes more mature, more savvy, and the show has to grow with that audience as well.
We have a few questions. People want to know a little bit about you, just little fun things to know. So your take on fun parks, roller coasters, yes or no?
Yes. I don't go to them too often, but when my wife and I do go to the Canadian exhibition in Toronto, we definitely like to go on a couple of roller coasters. I remember growing up as a kid thinking how awesome. I went on a roller coaster with Michael Keaton, who had just been cast as Batman. back in 1988 or 89, and Neil Hope, who played Wheels, we were behind him in the roller coaster, and Neil leaned over and said, "You're going to play Batman." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, shut up, kid. I'm just here to go on a roller coaster." So, I do have fond memories of being on a roller coaster as a kid. So, yes.
Absolutely great. And what's your routine to keep in shape? Are you a yoga person, a run person? What are you up to?
What's shape? I don't keep in nothing, man. I'm just eating and drinking anything I want. This is a pandemic. You gotta stay real. No, I see all this stuff on Peloton and yoga and all that stuff on TV. That ain't me. Although my wife has an Apple Watch and she makes me walk like 5K as many times as we can a week with the dogs, and I'm literally just trying to keep up with her. Not that I'm not out of shape, but I'm not Peloton shape. But kudos to everyone who does and who wants to be in shape. I do not begrudge you for wanting to be in shape. Stacey Mistician, who played Caitlin, she actually does an online workout training program. So if anybody wants to check her out, they can go to stacymistician.com. Good luck trying to figure out how to spell all that. But she is the most fit 50-year-old woman I've ever seen in my life. So she's got a YouTube channel as well. Check it out if you can.
Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that. And if you had to tell us who was the most intelligent person that you know or influential for you, we heard about Michael J. Fox, but, in your entourage, if you had to tell us about that, who would that be?
Growing up as a kid or currently?
Well, actually both, because I think currently is great to know where you're getting your inspiration from since you're doing so much and the editing and you just keep going. But we can actually go to both.
Well, as a kid growing up on the set of Degrassi, I would say Kit Hood, our co-creator, was like a father figure to all the cast. He was the captain on set. He was the director. He was the one that gave the show its style and its feel. He taught us how to act. He would draw emotion out of us when we were in a scene because many of us didn't know what we were doing. And Kit, I have to give him respect. And I was blessed to have Kit at Degrassi Palooza before he passed away, unfortunately, in January of 2020. That was only 7 months after Palooza ended that he unfortunately left us. But, he was the man that gave the show its feel. He laid the foundation for everything that came afterwards. And again, when you talk about mentor, he was the one that taught everybody how to act on that show because we were literally kids plucked out of high schools across Toronto. So he really is that special element that many people don't know about that helped Degrassi be what it was back then. I wish I had a mentor like that today. Now in this world that we live in, all I basically have is my support system, which is my wife. She's there for me every day. And she's the one that is there for me when I'm in a hole emotionally and helps me stay strong. And that's what spouses are supposed to do.
That's great. Absolutely great. And actually, I was going to ask about the whole, for the advice for people, when people keep being motivated, you keep doing things, what gets you going? What keeps you motivated?
Find something that makes you happy, period. If you can find something that motivates you, makes you happy, gives you passion, again, it could be working out, it could be exercise, it could be writing a book, it could be anything, whatever floats your boat, man. I'm not going to judge you, but it literally is what's going to get you up in the morning and keep you motivated and keep you inspired. Find something that makes you happy, and I'm not going to make it any more complicated than that because it doesn't have to be. Right now in my life, nostalgia, pop culture, reminiscing about the past, that makes me happy. I'm in that sort of phase in my life right now where I'm reminiscing. So if I can continue to make appearances, to bring my cast together for other events, tell my story, have a conversation with a very nice lady for half an hour to reminisce, that makes me happy. And as long as I can keep doing that and making a living, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. It's great. And we're really glad to hear from you. We want to keep that going. I think that even personally, I'd love to see more things like Degrassi where people can see themselves. I think over the years, it's become even more clear how important representation is. And it's almost as if the creators knew that before everyone else did.
Yeah, you're right. And I can't really get into it right now, but there is something Degrassi related that I'm trying to work on with a couple of friends of mine in the industry. We're nowhere near having that conversation out loud about it, But if there's an opportunity, you'll find out about it on our social media page, Degrassi Tour anywhere. That's our social media handle. But we're hoping to bring something new and exciting and reinvigorating the brand before the end of the year, if possible, or at least make that announcement before the end of the year. And again, it is about representation. It is about talking to a generation. And I truly believe that every generation should have their version of Degrassi that helped them get through an awkward time. So far we've had the 80s, the 90s, the zeros, the 10s. And I think we could definitely use a new version of Degrassi in the 20s that could help a generation that I'm sure is going to feel very lost because they've missed out on 2 years of socializing and being in that high school setting. And I hope that they're strong enough to get through this. And hopefully they'll just look back at this one day as a very weird time in their lives, but they got through it and they weren't affected too much emotionally, mentally because of it.
If you had to look back on some of the best moments, what would you pin as the best moment in the early filming days? What did you enjoy?
I'm going to be so selfish. I'm going to be so selfish and say that the Degrassi movie finale, School's Out, was probably the highlight of my career because I always wanted to be in one of those cheesy 80 movies where you run through the beach with the music playing and in slow motion. And I got to do all that, growing up as a kid, I wanted to be Karate Kid. I wanted to be, Marty McFly. And this was my, School's Out was my opportunity to be in one of those cool 80s movies that is so, we got to say fucking on TV and, all that cool stuff. Every time I see that movie, either at a screening or whatnot, it makes me giggle because it is just ridiculous. And it's mine. I know the other characters did a great job in that film and they were there, but again, it was the Joey Jeremiah finale and, with Tessa and Caitlin, and it was just amazing. I absolutely loved making that movie because it was, it allowed me to just really expand my acting chops and be a jerk. And it was amazing. So, that's really what it is for me. The whole Degrassi experience is a blur because, your perception and how you watch the show is very different than my perception because mine was from behind the camera and all the fun and the shenanigans that we had on set is our story for us that was on the show. And you guys got to enjoy what the production and the writers and the filmmakers all did. That's for you guys. But yeah, we had so much fun back in those days behind the scenes and offset that I would never share because it's just it's us being teenagers, right? It's growing up as a kid, and I got the best youth experience that I could have possibly have had because of the experience of being on the show.
That's excellent. I mean, I grew up in Montreal, and I don't know anybody from my age group who doesn't have a favorite moment or remembers something very poignant that stuck with them from watching the show. So a whole entire culture and a whole entire generation is touched by that. So just to end it, I'd like to know, what would you say to teens who are going into the business now, who would like to, act? How would you advise them on balancing their lives?
Yeah, have a backup job. I would never tell anybody not to get into the acting industry. It is a very rewarding industry if you can hack it because it's very difficult. It's just as difficult as being a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or whatever. But, you really have to put your heart wholeheartedly into it and sacrifice a lot to do it. You have to have thick skin because you're going to get a lot of rejection and that can take its toll over time. That's the hardest thing is when you go in and you do an audition and you really believe you did a great job and then you just get nothing back. You get no feedback, you don't get the role, and you're like, man, what did I do wrong? There's a lot of self-doubt and that takes its toll over time. But when you are on set, when you're actually doing the craft and you're doing the art and you're lucky enough to be doing the gig, man, oh man, that is an amazing feeling. That's why we do it, because we want to be able to touch people through our experiences. We want to share emotion on camera, all that fun stuff, and then hopefully touch lives like we did with Degrassi. That's the ultimate reward for all of that work. But at the end of the day, that doesn't happen 24/7. Only a few people get to really make a living for decades in this industry and do it well. And unfortunately, there's a lot of disappointment. I was blessed. I had a great run. 3 decades is a really good run, but it did take its toll, and I did eventually walk away from that for now. Who knows if I'll go back into it. it. But it is a difficult choice to walk away. Be prepared for anything and everything. Go for it as if it was a real serious career, if that's your wish. But you also have to be aware that you don't want to sacrifice so much that you get stuck and you cannot get away from it. I remember my mom telling me in my mid-20s, "Are you sure you still want to be an actor? Why don't you think about doing something else?" And I'm like, "No, I got to be an actor. That's all I know." And it sort of pigeonholed me to this one career where maybe I could have done something else if I had been a little bit more, open to the opportunity to do something else. I was so fixated on being an actor because I had such a good run as a teenager. I thought it would never end, and that was my sort of handicap. But now I'm learning that there is life outside of acting. There's other things you can do, but still touch people's lives, and that's what I'm trying to do with the Degrassi tour: is connect with people in a positive way.
Which is great that you can transform it. You say it's as a handicap, but it's more like a calling. When you find something that works for you, you can't go back and regret that. So, and then also people profited from it. So it's also good that you were able to transform it. So it's something that seems to have evolved with you. So I guess it's go for it fully and then be flexible is what you're saying.
That's it. That's exactly it,
Okay.
Cheryl. Go for it and be flexible, because you never know how you're going to end up in this entertainment industry. You could become a YouTube sensation and not even think that was what you were doing, be an influencer or whatever. And that's okay too, right? Because not everybody's going to be a superstar on camera. I thought I was going to be like Keanu Reeves, or I was going to be like whatever, right? And that's what I thought as a young person. But maybe there's a different path. And again, you have to be flexible and go with the flow. And that's great advice, Cheryl.
Excellent.
That actually is it.
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled. No, we don't want to fangirl here, but just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time and to letting us get to know you again and all the things that you've evolved with. And it's so appreciated to be able to get a time and speak with you. So thank you very much. And on behalf of all the fans and all the people who are going to be excited to watch this, we really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's because of people like you that Stacey, Mistitian, and myself and the other cast members love to do these live appearances and love to do these conventions. Thank you for remembering us and making us feel like that we did do something positive with our lives and that we did touch you guys. And I give kudos to all the crew and all the people behind the camera that help make Degrassi happen, because they don't get the celebration that we do when we make appearances. There was a lot of people that worked really, really hard to make this show happen. And I thank them every time I think about the success of the show. So thank you, Cheryl. And thank you guys
very much.
for having us at your conventions all these times. And I hope we can do it again in the future.